Recently, a nasty little conversation has reared its ugly head yet again, and it's that the video game industry believes that it's time for games to be $100 or more.
Jesus.
Mark my words.
That's a lot of money for a video game. But I will add that if you look at the price of video games a few years ago, they were, I mean, the first video game I remember buying was like probably $39.99. And now they're up to, I mean, and keep in mind, this is like Canadian dollars. So, and now they're up to like $89.99. They're almost 100 here. But if you track that to inflation, it's actually behind inflation on compared to like other goods.
If this is the path that the industry chooses to follow, this will likely lead to the largest collapse this industry has ever seen. They think that the layoffs, closures, and canceled games are bad now. You haven't seen anything yet. The players already have a long list of reasons as to why not to buy games today. And you want to go and add an even bigger reason to that list?
Likely, here's a good example, right? Is that you can use the inflation argument as much as you want, but they made Kingdom Come Deliverance for like 41 million bucks, and Black Myth Wukong was for like 60, 70, or 80 million. So like, really all this is going to end up doing is it's going to make you non-competitive in the market because you're competing in a global marketplace with different currency rates and different rates of payment. And so if you have places on other parts of the world that are making the product way cheaper than you are, and the product is relatively similar, then, and you know, the problem here is that it's actually better, is that you're going to just lose in the free market.
He's right here. Technically, the prices of things should be going down. Like in a natural free market economy, things tend to go down in price. Just because companies get more efficient at creating products, and they like in a free market economy, they're technically supposed to compete with each other to drive the prices down of goods. But because we don't have a free economy, and we don't have and because of inflation, the government prints a bunch of money, everything continues to go up in price. In a natural free market economy, that would not happen. Things would go down in price. So technically, that's the way they should go.
Signing your own death warrant. That's it.
The vast majority of players, the reason that will be at the very top of their list. You know, for years now, we've heard about how they think that the video game industry bubble is going to burst because there's just been so much investor interest over the years. The wages have increased, the cost of development and marketing has gone up, and the long development cycles that these games are in, 7 to 10 years in some cases, is just not making these games financially viable. These big AAA, these big shiny AAA games are too expensive to make for such little return.
It's not like they didn't make AAA games before, right? They still made AAA games before, but like the price of things should be going steadily down, but it's not, right? And also you have to take into consideration that they don't have to pay for things like packaging and shipping and stuff, because most games are now you get a digital copy of it, right? So that should drive. I mean, that's probably part of the reason as to why the box price of games hasn't gone up as much as compared to other products, even with inflation. It's just because there is some efficiencies there that keep the price from going up too high.
Yeah. So they've gotten themselves thinking, well, how do we fix this issue? What's the actual problem here? I mean,
you fire all the people who have useless jobs that contribute nothing to the actual product. You narrow down the scope of your projects. You take down the, you look at the 80-20 rule and you see where 80% of your fucking money is going for like water physics. You fire all of those people. You get rid of everybody there that has a job because they, somebody else says they needed a job to manage somebody who manages somebody else. And you get people in there that do work. That's the way you do it. The DEI, well, I mean, of course you fire them. They're done, right? But, like, you do that, like, you're going to have games. You're going to have no problems.
That's how it would naturally go, right? Companies, like, if you look at TVs and monitors and stuff, like, they pretty much keep going down in price. I remember when we got our first like big screen TV, like rear projection TV, it was like $6,000, and that was in like the early 2000s. If you like track that inflation, it's probably almost like double that. It would be like buying a $12,000 TV today, which would be like, I mean, they exist, but that would be like the tip top of the line type of thing. Like if most tech products, they kind of tend to trend down in price. And it's because it's not a really heavily regulated industry, and they can do that. That's what economies naturally do. They tend to drive down the price of products, and then because they have to compete in the free market, whether you buy a Sony TV or Panasonic or LG or whatever, they have to compete with each other to give the customer a better product. That's why things tend to go down in price. Anything that the government puts their hands in, that doesn't happen to, right? Food doesn't go down in price, all this kind of stuff. Housing, school, anything the government is involved in does not go down in price.
That's it. Like, you fire useless people that don't do anything, that create no real product. Like, they're not doing anything, they're not adding anything to the game. Like, you ask yourself, like, is this person adding value to the game at a rate that they're costing? The answer probably for a lot of these people is no. So get rid of them. It's so easy.
Can't be that our leadership is incompetent. It can't be the slop that we've been delivering to the customers. It can't be that we've been over investing in these projects.
Remember when Seattle Iwata, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the first name right, one of the co-chairman and like one of the main people at Nintendo took.
I'll give Asmon, he does a really good job of remembering like people's names, especially when it comes to like game devs or like the leaders of companies. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I'm so bad with names, I can never remember any. Like, it's very rare I will remember someone's name. Someone will, like, I'll meet someone new and they'll tell me their name and I'll forget it within like 10 minutes of meeting them. It's a really bad debuff that I have.
Like a massive pay cut when the Wii U didn't do well. I've never heard of a Western CEO or a Western leader doing that.
It has to be that the customer's not paying enough money.
Yeah.
That has to be the solution to this. So today what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the industry's long list of excuses as to why we need to be paying $100 or more. We're going to watch on as journalists seal clap the industry's death march into oblivion, and we're going to talk about why I think the players aren't going to buy. This isn't the first time we've had to have this conversation. Back in 2023, Capcom's president came forward at an event in Japan and explained that video game prices were far too low, even after the price hike up to $70, explaining that video game development costs are 100 times more expensive than they've ever been, and games haven't followed inflation like other industries. And he's not wrong. In 1990, a standard game would cost around $50. Right. Adjust for inflation, sure, that would be closer to $100 today. Yet, even with the price hikes in 2020 up to $70 for AAA games, the reality is...
You can justify it however much that you want, and I think that there are a lot of logical arguments that people can make for why a video game should be $100, but all of the logic in the world doesn't make somebody give you $100. A value proposition that...
It's true. No, people are really bad, like when it comes to understanding inflation or even things like compound interest. Like, people's brains just don't work like that. When they see a price go up, they're just going to get like sticker shock. No matter, even if you explain to them, most people don't understand inflation or compound interest and how that affects prices.
That it's compelling causes them to give you $100. And the value propositions are simply not compelling. Is people like this don't know the fundamentals of sales and the fundamentals of selling. And because of that, they've been so lost in the sauce of bureaucracy and executive management that they forgot how to actually look at things from the eyes of a consumer. $100 for a video game that's problematic is just simply not going to work.
I think it depends on the video game. I think people would pay, like everyone says GTA 6 is going to be $100. I think if GTA 6 launches $100, they would sell. They would sell. And there's people who say, no, I would never buy it. People are going to buy, especially the big, huge titles like COD, GTA. Like, even for me, like, if Monster Hunter comes out with $100 price tag, I would probably pay for it. Like, call me a dick eater, but I would do it. Like, if the game is good enough, people will pay it.
The number is too big. $90, I think, is possible. $100, I don't think is possible yet.
I think it is. $99.99. Like, slap that on a huge like AAA or quadruple A, as Ubisoft is going to call it, on one of these major release titles. I think they can get away with it.
Is that the industry
unfortunately
just hasn't kept pace. Over the same time period, from 1990s to today, wages, marketing, and development costs have all skyrocketed. Game studios are spending exponentially more money than they ever did in the 90s or early 2000s, so the profit made on the sale of a single game has shrunk year over year. If we were to adjust in line with
inflation, need to go after those like kids fire everybody from the federal government. They need to have EA needs to hire them. Blizzard needs to hire those like 21-year-old racists.
Big balls are going to audit the game companies.
Just take care of it, right?
From the early days of gaming to today, AAA games would be priced well over $100, maybe even $150 to be able to match today.
I mean, if AI if we get to AGI or ASI, whatever, artificial super intelligence, that would theoretically drive down game development costs to a point where maybe we won't see huge increases in the next couple of years. That's we'll have to wait and see on that one, but theoretically that's what should happen, right? If AGI, you don't need as many artists, you don't need as many coders, all that kind of stuff. Will those companies pass on the cost to consumers? Well, it depends. Like if there's gonna be enough of a competitive market in the video game space, then it could be. We could see a huge influx of competition to these even big titles.
Today's financial realities. Now, all of that makes sense with nuance removed. However, we don't live in a world without nuance. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of games that are released today make far more money past the point of sale. Something that didn't exist back when games were being made in the 90s and early 2000s.
And he's right, yeah.
They still had merchandise, toys, and clothing and other.
There's infinitely many different. Like you can never step in the same river twice, right? And so now
you can never step in the same river twice. I don't think I've ever heard that expression. What does that mean? That's some weird southern thing.
Oh, you have way less production costs, but you have higher distribution costs in some cases through things like Steam. You also have microtransactions, but you don't have deluxe editions that are as big of a component to sales as they used to be when they were physical copies. You're not selling physical copies.
Are we selling, or are game companies selling fewer like collector's editions? I guess so, right? Because if you're not really buying a physical product, you're not buying like the collector's edition that comes with a Halo helmet, stuff like that. But like, I don't know if that's true exactly, right? Because they sell collector's editions with a bunch of digital stuff, comes with skins and early access and stuff like, which I hate. Early access is the dumbest thing. I refuse to pay early access for a game. That's absurd to me.
Anymore, but you also have microtransactions, and so you're comparing so many apples to so many oranges. It's very hard to say whether it's justified or not.
And also he's showing a free-to-play game right now. Like Marvel Rivals has no box cost at all, and you just pay for skins. I don't know if this is the best example of it, because I don't think we ever used to have free-to-play games before the digital age. You couldn't get away with it. There's no way you could have a free-to-play game that comes on a disc, because there's a whole huge distribution cost factor there. That's why we never had them before.
And at the end of the day, it's not relevant as to whether it's justified or not. It's only relevant as to whether people are willing to pay that price or not. Because you can justify it as much as you want, and you can be right. Being right doesn't mean people have to agree with you.
Different things that they could sell. Now today, games have DLC,
foolish.
Loot boxes, gotcha and gambling mechanics, microtransactions,
what a waste of money.
This editions, and more. I'm sorry, but you can't convince me that video game companies aren't making enough money today, or there aren't enough ways for them to make money. However, games journalist and industry analyst Matthew Ball are going to try to tell us otherwise. In an article written by Eddie Mackich titled GTA 6 could cost as much as $100, some hope. Analyst clarifies comments. If Take-Two raises prices to $80...
I love how also, like... I hope that all of these other companies that are like slop farms don't think that now that GTA 6 breaks the glass ceiling, that now they can charge $100 for like their piece of shit.
Yeah, no, it's only going to be, the only ones that are going to get away with it are like the super quadruple A titles, if you could even call it quadruple A, right? GTA. I don't even think, I said COD earlier. I don't think COD could even get away with it. Maybe, but probably not.
I really hope
you're not going to get people to pay $100 for Assassin's Creed.
People pay $100 for Baldur's Gate 4. They pay $100 for Elden Ring 2.
Would they? I don't know. Baldur's Gate's not a big enough game, I think, to get people to pay $100 for it. That's a bit much. Maybe if they release a collector's edition, then maybe, but not for the base game. I don't see that happening. Like turn-based type games, it's not a big enough market. You need like one of these like massive everyone plays type of games, like GTA.
They're not gonna pay $100 for fucking generic, fucking random current year slop. Not gonna pay $100 for Concord. Not going to pay $100 for Veilguard. It's not going to happen.
Or more, other publishers could apparently follow suit. Eddie writes, veteran investment analyst and researcher Matthew Ball of Opinion has released a gargantuan 219-page report about the state of video gaming in 2025, and some of the presentation looks at how the video game industry could possibly grow in 2025. In a section titled How Player, Playtime, and Player Spend Might Return to Growth, Ball mentioned a variety of opportunities, including Grand Theft Auto 6 costing as much as $100 when it launches this year. Ball said that there is hope among some in the game.
I mean, dude, just like, I hate this like modern concept of trying to extract the most value possible from players to try and grow the product. Like just make a good game and it's gonna sell really well. Like stop making this garbage slop and then trying to min max how much money you can take out of each customer. Like just make a good game and you will be able, and you're just gonna do well. Like I don't know of a single game that's done well, that's created well, has good gameplay, everything the player wants, that doesn't sell well. I don't think that exists. There's no games that don't do well if they're a good game.
Market, the Take-Two will price GTA 6 at $80 or even $100, which could prove as a turning point for the video game industry. This could break a key price barrier and allow developers to raise their prices as well, he said. Before this, a Baldur's Gate 3 developer said
it's not going to happen. People still complain about $70. And also, like, the other issue is that
people complain about it, but they pay for it, right? Like COD, no matter what, they're going to sell copies of COD.
People don't like, you can make these sales and one day video games will be an average of $100. But I don't really think that we're there for the average customer yet. I just don't really think so.
I mean, I think you can do, like, just the narrative of inflation. Like when people are talking about eggs costing $12 or whatever, I think you can get away with the argument right now that the reason GTA 6 is going to be $100 is because of inflation, because inflation is on everyone's mind right now. Like politically, everyone's talking about inflation. Right now is the time to make the argument that why GTA 6 needs to be $100. I like, I don't want it to be $100, but I think in current year, they can get away with that argument.
People will only spend that much money for insanely good once-a-year games.
Yeah.
To act like you can make this the new normal is peak delusion.
GTA 6 could prompt a shift to more expensive games if Take-Two decides to price it
not for every
$70. Game. In a series of follow-up posts, Ball shared further key updates, including how GTA 4 was priced at $90 in real terms, with GTA 5 costing $83. Ball added, your rent is up, movie tickets have doubled, minimum wage, Spotify, Netflix, bus fare, gas, etc. Indeed, nearly all categories are up, not just flat in real terms.
And the worst part about it is that he's right about everything that he's saying.
Yeah. Everything
about this is accurate. All of these things are true, but none of it matters if the consumer isn't willing to spend the money.
Yeah, you're right. Like I was gonna make the argument that, like maybe rent is up, food is up, gas is up, all utilities are up, all that kind of stuff is up. But those are like necessities to live. But I mean, he's saying here Spotify is up, Netflix is up, so people are willing to pay more for entertainment, it seems. And it's, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, but yeah, that's just how it is.
You can make economic arguments. You can show people graphs, but showing somebody a graph doesn't make them give you $80. That just makes them say, wow, damn, that's crazy.
While games are at record lows. He went on to say Rockstar's cost isn't sufficient to set the price, but the argument games should be the only thing never to adjust for inflation and thus be, in the strictest terms, worth less every year is not healthy either or a good argument, in my opinion. Ball was not making a prediction himself that GTA 6 would cost $100, only that there is a belief in the market by some that it could happen. For his money...
Okay, here's kind of the counter argument to this, is that at least these other things, like I'm not talking about Netflix and stuff, but when it comes to food, utilities, rent, all that kind of thing, they're not being fundamentally changed like video games are. They're not they're not introducing like slop into these other types of things that you spend money on that are affected by inflation. Like games are they're being like reduced. The quality of them are being reduced, and they're being filled with a bunch of microtransaction crap that doesn't really apply to like food and utilities and rent and everything else, right?
The GTA 6 will cost $70. I can't believe I have to say this, but customers only ever care about inflation when said inflation affects them and their money. $100 is $100. Whether it's 1990 or 2025, no matter how you spin it, what excuses you make, or what numbers you point to, the vast majority of people just flat out cannot afford those prices. And
it's also that like there's a psychological marketing, right? I mean, it's like odd even pricing. I mean, this is something you learn. You take one business class in college and you learn this. They probably teach this in high school in some places. That's why everything is $9.99 or $7.
Yeah, unfortunately, this actually works. This works on me. Even like you think that you're smarter than this, but it does like subconsciously actually affect you, whether you think it does or doesn't. Like 19.99 it looks like less than $20, and 100% this works. That's why they continue to do it.
It's because people just perceive that to be less money.
Far more difficult time.
I'm surprised they haven't pushed like payment plans for video games more. Like if it gets to $100, I feel like they'll do that. They'll just be like, yeah, I own this game for 4 easy payments of $19.99 a month or something. So that like that 100% will work to like subconsciously affect people into buying the game. It doesn't seem as much if you break it down into payments.
Justifying buying games day one or buying games at all. My friends with kids buy maybe 1-2 games a year, or they just spend their money on indie games because they're far cheaper. They tend to have more replay value, and they don't take as long to complete. My friends
that are like, these are like my long-term 20-year friends. They play Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk, Factorio, Elden Ring. Oh, and I have a friend, he's playing the new Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game again because we played it growing up. Yeah.
I've played like 2 of those games. I still haven't played Baldur's Gate. I'll probably wait for that to go on sale soon and try it out. But I mean, I don't really have too many friends that play like those types of games. My friends typically play just online, basically free games, right? Free to play type of games. Whether it's OSRS, I mean, you pay a subscription fee for that. There's no box price. COD, I guess COD would be one of them, but most people aren't even playing that anymore. Things like Apex Legends, Dota, things like Tarkov. Does Tarkov have a box price? I don't think so. I think it's a free game, right? And then you just pay for skins and stuff, or you pay sub.
Yeah. That's it. Terraria, yeah. I've got another friend plays Terraria. Had to play Terraria with his girlfriend.
Without kids, well, they work too much and they can't even justify buying a $70 game, and they just choose to play free-to-play games instead. Gen Z is so maladjusted and ambivalent due to the pandemic that they can't even find work, and even if they do, they can't hold jobs for long. The vast majority of them are choosing to become NEETs out of choice. Who are they playing?
Base? True.
Planning to sell these games.
How is that base, bro? What are we talking about?
GTA 4 was priced at $90 in real terms. He's talking about how the price.
Dude, people are gonna play GTA 4, and 100% I see them doing the payment plan thing for GTA. People will buy it if you break it down into payments. It works. It works for every other like semi-expensive item, whether it's a phone or whatever. People will spend the money on it.
Price of GTA,
or we'll just go back to playing free-to-play games.
Was priced above inflation at the time, making $59.99 feel like $90 at the time.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
And that's why it should be completely.
No, it was a lot of money. Like my mom was like, she's like, you think I'm gonna buy you a $50 fucking game? How long are you gonna play that game for? I remember back in the day, like Super Nintendo and N64 day.
Dude, I almost never, like when I was a kid, my parents, like we would never buy games. We would just rent them, and then we just burn copies of them. Like when my PS2 got a chip in it, my dad found some guy. I don't know where he found him, but he put a chip in my PS2, and we would just go to the video store, rent a game, burn it, and that's how I'd get all my games pretty much.
days. Like, she was like, you got to really convince me on this game. You got to sell me on this game. Now, I mean, there were the easy ones. Like, I just say, Mom, Legend of Zelda. She says, oh, okay. We buy, and I remember it wasn't Majora's Mask. So you had to get, like, remember the N64, you had to get that memory thing, that red shit. And then wasn't Majora's Mask $60? Because it was like a gold cartridge or some shit. I remember we bought it from like a Walmart.
I was not like a Nintendo kid growing up. I mean, I do remember like my first memories of playing video games, of playing like back in Ukraine. We were it was like the N64 or whatever, like the Ukrainian or Russian knockoff of it was. But I remember playing like Duck Hunt and Super Mario, all that kind of stuff. Where like the very first game I remember playing is like some Ninja Turtles game, and I remember it came in like an orange cartridge. And I don't even know if it was a Super Nintendo or it was some like Eastern European knockoff of it. But yeah, I was never really a Nintendo kid growing up. Like I had friends who had them, so I'd go over to their house and play like on their N64 and then the Game Boys and stuff. But I never even had my own Game Boy. I had to like steal my friends because he I didn't steal it, I borrowed it. Like he had like 4 or 5 Game Boys. Like so I would just like borrow it and then just hold on to it for 2 weeks and then beat the game. Well, did I ever beat a Pokemon game on the Nintendo? I feel like I do remember fighting the was it the Elite Four? Who the hell's at the end of the Pokemon games? I don't even remember. Holy crap, dude, so long ago. But yeah, I'm beating like Pokemon Gold. I definitely beat the, is it the Elite Four at the end? I think it's called the Elite Four, right? But anyways, yeah, like my main game console was PS1, the PlayStation, like the gray one. I had both. I had like the small one and then the big gray block one. Played the shit out of that. And then like my first main or like game console that I played a shit ton would have been PS2. So many good games on there. That's when I first played Monster Hunter. Man, I love it. Monster Hunter is an amazing game. But yeah, pretty much every game that I owned was a rented copy that I burned like a copy of and then made it playable with my chip in my PS2. And then eventually I got an Xbox 360. And I think once I got an Xbox 360, that's when I actually started buying games. When I bought the like Halo and COD and stuff.
Yeah, like that was it. Cause damn, was it 70? I forgot.
Yeah, and like my Mario was Toomba. On PlayStation, it was Toomba. Such a good game. You jump on little
for
pigs.
games to be $90 or $100 today.
I actually remember
Here's the other thing they're missing. $100 isn't just a number. It's a cultural touchstone. It's a psychological threshold that makes consumers think twice before making the purchase. Crossing that $100 mark makes a statement. It's saying that this product is now a luxury tier item.
They won't have to cross $100. They'll just make it $99.99, and there we go. It's not $100. They just see the nines. There's no 100.
Something that isn't just an impulse buy, but an investment, whether it's worth it or not. And that's when that feeling.
You want to hear a really fun inflation fact? The purchasing power of $3 in like the early 1900s is roughly equivalent to $100 now.
That makes me want to throw up. That's so gross, dude. Government should never have the power to print money. And I know the Fed is not technically the government, but we all know that it is at the end of the day. And it's absolutely criminal that the government could just simply inflate your money away from you like that. It's just, it's honestly, I think like the government's ability to print money and like declare money by fiat is kind of like the root of almost all of modern society's problems. Take that away from them and it fixes 90% of the issues that we have. It's so gross.
The hardest. It's not just about the price tag. It's about the perception of value and what people can reasonably spend in an already stretched economy. Look, a $100 purchase feels like it demands a justification. I can't tell you guys how many times I had to overcome dread when I was wanting to upgrade from a $30 webcam and a $50 microphone. Yeah. For many, this is going to be a breaking point. The moment where games start to feel more like an exclusive club for the people that can afford it and less like a pastime accessible to anyone who loves the medium.
That's also another really big problem he's bringing up is that video games are mainly for young guys, and young guys care about video games the most because video games are the first place that young men have an opportunity to prove themselves on an even playing field with other people that are not just their peers. So like,
yeah, he's kind of right there. But once again, you can get around this by just make it a payment plan. you can own GTA by paying $9.99 a month until you pay it off or whatever. People would do it. Like I'm not saying that's what they should do, but if I was them, that's what I would do.
Like, for example, when you play a video game in Fortnite, like let's say you're playing Marvel Rivals and you're 14, you're not going to get gapped by some 30-year-old with a job. Now, the reality is that you actually have an advantage over him, not just genetically because you're younger, you have like
You just have more time,
faster
like...
reflexes, but also because like you don't even know what a mortgage is. You have an income tax. What the fuck is so a 401k, what is that? You're 14 years old. All you know about is, you know, playing this character and being good at this, right? You don't even know like a 1040. Like, what's a 1040? Is that like a, you know, is that like a Fortnite move or something? And
that's like an American thing. 1040. What is that? I don't know what that is. I'm Canadian. 1040.
So yeah, you don't even know shit. So you can like 100%
like a tax form or something. I'm assuming it's a tax form or something.
Yeah, is that the new graphics card or something? And so that's really a big difference too. Is that young guys and people without a lot of resources look to video games as an outlet for them to experience life on an even playing field. And I think that that's a really big component that's not discussed enough. And I think that that desire is partially naive, but it exists.
I don't really see how, like, what this has to do with the price of video games. But yeah, because once you're on that, like, you have to buy the game to be competing on that field, right? And it's not like the 14-year-old's the one that's buying it. Their parents are going to be buying it for them. Usually, anyways.
Barrier that not only reflects inflation, but also sets the tone for how the industry views its audience. One where only a select few can afford or truly engage with what the industry has to offer. I just hate how disingenuous all of this is. Ball says the prices for all things are up, and the idea that games need to stay the same price isn't fair, conveniently ignoring the fact that while
the problem is that he's right, but it doesn't matter. That's the issue. When we are old, we are going to look back and say, you remember back in the day when video games were only $100?
So what's he arguing here? Like, yeah, the game's going to go up in price, right? it's going to go up and people are going to pay for it. They may arrive there in different ways, but ultimately it pretty much has to happen. It's just the kind of economy that we have.
We're going to do that one day, but not today.
Upfront price of games has remained relatively stable. The way that games are monetized has changed drastically. In-game purchases, microtransactions, season passes, battle passes, and expensive collector's editions have all become the norm. Game companies have found new, more aggressive ways to squeeze every dollar from the player far beyond the original price tag. A $60 to $70 game is no longer just that. It's an entry point to truly experience whatever the game has to offer.
It's like whenever you pay for a girl's only.
Sort of. What is Asmon going down here? Some degeneracy rabbit hole. Okay, so he's right that the games have more. They're more than just the box cost now. But I could be wrong, but I think like the amount of skins and stuff that you would have in a game now, it's probably more content than games used to have before too, right? So even though the game does have these microtransactions in it, like you could make the argument that they're not putting as much content into the game as games used to have in order to sell it to you later. And you're, even though you're not paying as much of a higher cost for the box cost of the game, when you factor in inflation compared to other products, you're actually getting less content in the game than you used to. Like back in the day when games didn't have like where you could pay for skins. I can see that argument, but also I feel like games these days, they do have more in terms of cosmetics and stuff like that not as many things existed back then. So it's kind of hard to make that argument on the surface. Has anyone actually done that? Has anyone gone back and be like, you got like, let's say 20 skins in a game back when you just had a box cost, and now you only get 10 or something and you have to pay for the extra 10. I'm not sure if anyone's actually done that.
Fans, and then you find out that everything in the OnlyFans is actually pay-per-view. So you have to pay a subscription to be part of the OnlyFans, and then you have to pay for the content on top of that.
I don't understand how anyone pays for that shit. When if you want to be a gooner, everything's free online anyways. It's embarrassing, dude. people who pay for OnlyFans is just, this is the bottom of the barrel of society. I don't understand how it's such a profitable industry. It's crazy.
How would you know? Because I dated girls that did that. Yeah, they paid for my dinner plenty of times.
Yeah, dude, that's not a flex, Asmon. I agree with Asmon for a lot of things. This is one I definitely do not agree with him on. This is absolute degen behavior. It's not something I'd be proud of.
Are often pressured into spending far more in additional content. Customers aren't just paying more, they're paying far beyond what they originally bargained for. And that's what should be addressed, not just the price tag on the box. And what's even more funny about all of this is the fact that the writer of this article actually ended up using the Baldur's Gate 3 developers' words out of context. And by the way, if you guys have paid attention at all to journalism,
I love how they like to compare like Baldur's Gate 3 to like the new Assassin's Creed or like Star Wars Outlaws. Like, oh yeah, this is like, these are both AAA games. Like, yeah, these are both AAA games. Yeah, like a firework, like a black cat and a grenade are both exploding.
It's funny how many times Asmon talks about Baldur's Gate 3, and I don't think he's played the game yet at all, right?
They both explode. Yeah, for sure.
Last couple of years, they've been using Baldur's Gate 3 developers out of context constantly because they think it adds some type of emotional weight to whatever their words are. Like, oh, look, here's this great developer that made a game that everybody loves saying that they agree with us, when 9 times out of 10, their words are completely out of context.
Yeah.
They used it here saying that everybody's just waiting for GTA to increase the price, acting like the Baldur's Gate 3 developers want GTA to increase the price. When
but I don't think we'll get there with DLC promises. Yeah, so that's a really
the original tweet that they had made was talking about how much they hated artificial price structures and gouging that we see in today's gaming industry. The original tweet actually said, I don't love the artificiality of pricing structures post-retail. Use the inflated base price to upsell a subscription and use vague content promises to inflate ultimate editions to make the base price look better. It all seems a bit dangerous and disconnected from the community.
That's a fact.
I think the game should be priced according to its quality, breadth, and depth. I'm not against higher prices, but
that's how it used to fucking be. And
it should
they
be,
stopped
right?
doing this in the GameCube era. Before that, that's how it used to be. And this guy's, you can tell, look at his hairline.
I mean, there used to be, right? Like, the good games used to cost a bit more than just like the mid-average run-of-the-mill type of thing.
He remembers that.
This arbitrary uniformity just doesn't make sense to me. It feels so unserious. I'm going to go off for a second. Don't you guys love how every single time they like to twist things to be able to suit whatever their narrative is, and everything is always coming from the perspective of the industry and never from the perspective of the player, of the customer, the people that are actually spending money on these things to begin with? Because we are never a priority. We are never at the forefront of discussion. We are never at the forefront of their mind when they're making these decisions. And then they sit back and they wonder.
It's actually crazy how you
I mean, he did say, like, this guy did say, not him, but the guy who was tweeting, he did say you have to make a better product, right? And the better products should be priced a bit differently than the mid stuff.
Have people that are visionary product designers and visionary like innovators in the industry. I think 2 great examples are Michael Dell and Steve Jobs for computers recently. And both of them looked explicitly at the consumer experience and worked backwards from that. And then you have these clowns that somehow, like, you literally have it written out for you. They wrote a book on how to do it. It's not like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just start rolling. And they're not. They can't use the fucking wheel. So Jobs is a great salesman. Yeah, nobody listens to the fucking customer. It's nuts.
Great salesman, but a bit of a slave driver. I don't think you would have wanted to work for Steve Jobs if the books that I've read are true.
Why games are failing and studios are closing. I don't know how could that possibly happen? The prices for everything is going up. You're absolutely right. Now that I think about it, you know what hasn't gone up with inflation? The general quality and day one performance of video games. Even some of the best games that we've seen released over the last few years can't even hit a standardized level of quality. We are spending $60 to $70 on brand new day one video games that we have to sit there and hold the bag because the game's not even finished, because it's always
I mean, I get what he's saying. For me, I can't really make a huge comment on this because it's been a while since I've bought a game that has not functioned well on day one. I guess, like, what's the most recent example that I can think of? I guess it would be Cyberpunk. I mean, I didn't buy it till way later, anyways. But that's like the one that comes to mind that game was broken on release. Which, yeah, he definitely has a point here for sure.
Exactly. Minimum viable product that's being.
Yeah, the MVP. This ain't sports, bro. Most valuable player? Minimum viable product. That means the biggest piece of shit that we can get you to pay for. And Avowed, they just come out and they say, like, yeah, we know this is going to be fucked on release. And it's like, yeah, I get it, right? But you can't go and say that and then be surprised if people don't want to give you $90 for a deluxe edition.
Released to us, and we have to wait for them to finish the game for us to be able to play it. But let me take a wild guess and say they're probably going to try to blame the price of things on that as well.
For sure. It's Trump.
We want to talk about how expensive it is to make games today. You know, my question is,
that's what game developers are going to try and do. They're going to try and blame. They're going to say Trump tariffs are making our video games too expensive, and so now we have
I
to
can
charge
see
you
it.
more. So
I can see if you're like a far left dev saying
the
that.
ones that need to keep up with you and your,
especially if you're a Canadian dev, you work for like Ubisoft Montreal or whatever. It's because of Trump. It's because of Trump.
Or spending. We didn't sign up for that. When I look around the industry, I see some of the most successful games over the last few years: Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2. These games are made with a quarter of the budget of some of these big
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Look at that. They said they made that game for like $41 million. Huh.
41 million for Kingdom Come? That's kind of crazy considering the scope of the game. I mean, the game is a little janky. Just from I haven't played it, but just watching other people play it, it does look a little janky. But 40 million, that's pretty good for that size of a game. The scope it has, that's impressive.
How'd that happen?
Actually, AAA games that nobody ended up buying in the first place. You guys are making tens of billions of dollars. The vast majority of the money that is made in this industry is coming from microtransactions.
Yep.
And also, just the amount of people playing video games is exploded, right? Just the the sheer number of people playing now, the market is massive. So they're raking in money when it comes to just the sheer amount of people that play games now compared to like the 1990s or the early 2000s. You got to take that into consideration.
This is not my problem.
Yep.
The sheer cowardice.
You've got to stop asking the consumer to take on the accountability from the business.
It's not like businesses. I think they do have a certain right when it comes to inflation. Inflation affects everyone, right? Not just businesses or consumers. Like, I feel like if you're a business, you can justifiably raise your prices when it comes to inflation. It's not the business's fault. It's not because the businesses run poorly that the government is inflating the money supply. Right. So it is a fair ask to like if you're selling something for $10 and then inflation goes up by 5% next year, you are, I think, technically it's not outrageous for you to say this product now costs $105 the next year.
Stop asking consumers to do that. That's not how you run a business. You run
like, yeah, if your own costs are going up because of your inefficiencies or negligence or whatever, your employees cost more. I mean, that is tied to inflation as well. But I'm saying, like, if your business suffers some sort of disaster and you have to raise prices because of that, no, that's the consumer doesn't care. But because of inflation, it affecting everything and everyone, I don't feel like it's outrageous to increase your prices based off of that. And same thing when you go to your boss and ask for a raise too. By the way, you go to your boss and say, hey, you have to pay me more this year because because the government is inflating the money supply, inflation went up. That is a fair reason to ask for a raise as well.
Run a business by creating a product, creating value that people are willing to give you money for. A lot of things beyond that, almost everything beyond that, is noise.
Of these companies to sit by and wait for somebody else to increase prices because they know it's a game or they think it's a game that everybody's going to buy and it's going to be the best way to just sneak that price change in. And that is so telling. Because you are pathetic and you realize that your games wouldn't sell.
That's right, because they sell.
Asmon, thanks for unpausing. Eddie continues with $70 is...
He got his ass. How did he know? How did he know? This 4D chess move.
He was right.
He knew
I mean,
exactly
shit,
when he would do
was
it
right.
too.
I mean, fuck. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
The current market rate for new AAA releases, and in fact, it was Take-Two
Okay.
that was among the first to raise prices from $60 to $70 back in 2020. Many are naturally wondering if Take-Two might raise prices again for GTA 6's launch. But it remains to be seen if that'll happen. Beyond updating the sticker price for games, video publishers have found other ways to be able to make more money out of players, including expensive editions, microtransactions, and battle passes, just to name a few. GTA 5, for example, has sold 205 million copies
That's a lot
and
of people.
brings in a lot of money in microtransactions in GTA Online.
Shark
Early
cards.
predictions have said that GTA 6 could sell 40 million copies and earn more than $3 billion in revenue during its first year alone.
Wow.
Paul said that GTA 6's launch this year will
Yeah, that's another thing. GTA doesn't actually have to release with a $100 price tag. They can milk their players for way more money. I'm sure there's like a min-max situation here where they can determine what the box price should be compared to how much money they can actually milk out of their customers by getting more customers because the price is a bit cheaper on the box cost. I'm sure they've already figured all this out. So it might not even come out at $100.
will have mixed impact on total player hours and revenue across the gaming industry because it'll only be available on console.
Yeah.
The PC release is expected after the console launch.
Oh, really? I
However,
didn't even know
Ball
that.
said that GTA 6 will severely cannibalize total hours and spending that would go to other video games when it launches. For its
Of course, that's what happens. It's the same reason why this game killed Overwatch. Like, you see this game going like this, you see Overwatch going...
Yeah, I mean it's only for games that kind of fill the same niche, right? Like this game, Marvel Rivals did not kill like Dota, for example, or League of Legends. There's a little bit different audience. I'm sure there's a bit of overlap, just like people who play games usually play more than one genre, right? So when GTA 6 comes out, I'm sure like most games will see a slight drop off, but yeah, it affects some games more than others.
It's dying.
Ubisoft said GTA 6 is a good thing for the video game industry overall because a huge game like that may help more people turn to gaming.
It is.
Some of the other areas that Ball listed off as having potential for growth in 2025 included further expansions into non-core markets, user-generated content, social game services, the Nintendo Switch 2, other new handhelds and devices, AA, AAA, mobile gaming, app store regulation, new game releases, generative AI, and advertising. Make this make sense. I do not understand how GTA 6, projecting 40 million copies sold and $3 billion in revenue in its first year, is somehow a footnote in a discussion as to why other games should increase their prices to $100. They are failing to realize why GTA 5 did so well, why GTA 6 is likely to do even better, or why it could even sell for $100 in the first place. You're not
people that think that, like, they see one person who's successful and they look at the person go through the finish line and they say, oh, okay, I'm going to start running this race. But they don't realize that this person trained for it for like 20 years. Like, yeah, if you remove all context, this makes sense. But if you think about it, it stops making sense.
even thinking about what the impact
And think about how many, that's a good example, right? Is streamers. Think about how many streamers there are. Oh, well, all you do is just sit there and play video games. Well, I can do that. I'm going to stream and be a millionaire. And then you do it. And
So
nobody
he's
watches.
saying what, in this context, the big streamers are GTA 6 and that that impression he just made is just like the nobodies. Yeah, like the shitty nobody games that like almost nobody plays, they're not going to get away with charging $100 for their product just because GTA 6 does. Yeah, okay, I see what he's saying.
Watches the show. I think that's another good example. In a way it worked before. Yeah, exactly. That's just how it isn't. It doesn't work. It's easy, right? Yeah. It's easy. People just want to sit there and they don't understand a lot of the context about it. It's the same as crypto or like investing in general. They don't understand anything about how to make money.
It's a little
just think that
different.
if they put $300 in a Hawk Tuah coin, they'll be a fucking millionaire.
a price increase would be on other games and other studios outside of one of the biggest video game franchises of all time. $70 is the new current market rate for AAA releases? No, I think it's the going market rate for trash. The best releases on PC over the past 2 years have been $60. I mean, take a minute to think about it. If game prices were $100 today, what games
It's actually a really good point. Like Elden Ring and I think Baldur's Gate 3 both were $60, right? They weren't even 70.
Really? Is that a thing? Okay, I haven't purchased Baldur's Gate or Elden Ring, so were they really under the $70 point? Interesting. Okay. I mean, I guess I don't really notice it as much because once again, Canadian dollars. So $60 American, it's usually $80 here.
Realistically come out at $100. Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age The Veilguard, Diablo 4, Call of Duty, The Sims, sports games, trash, generic slop, and in some cases, absolute dumpster fires. And while some of them still would have reached an audience, they wouldn't have reached an audience of the same size because they would have cut off their leg to save a foot in regards to the game's price. I mean, think about what you're saying here. Even Ball mentions how GTA 6 is likely to cannibalize the sales and playtime of other games when they're released. Now imagine these morons raising their prices.
I mean, we're assuming that GTA 6 is going to be good. There's no proof that it is going to be good. Like the Rockstar could be cannibalized by the same regressive like things that happened to Ubisoft and Activision and stuff. We have no idea whether GTA 6 is going to be as good as everyone's hoping it is. Like let's hope it is, but I'm sure Rockstar is filled with the same type of DEI hires and same type of practices that these other game studios have. So I'm not I don't have my hopes up that high.
It's to $100. Good games sell well and bad games don't. And from my perspective, if the price of games were to increase, it's going to price a lot of players out of a lot of games, and the entire market is going to shift. Good games.
Another really big component to this that's not considered enough is the effects this has on second world and third world country markets. And I think that the biggest one is South America.
Are games priced differently in those places? I don't think so. Not for like AAA releases. I mean, there must be. There's no way that they're paying like, I don't know what the exchange rate from like the peso to the US dollar is, but there's no way they're paying US prices for games in those countries, are they?
Are some of the most dedicated and invested.
I'm sure there's some regional pricing
online for video games in the entire world. And so when you make games like that and you don't have regional pricing for people like that, you lose this massive fan base that you could potentially have. Big numbers. Yeah, exactly. Like it's insane.
Will sell well and bad games.
I know games are like way more expensive in Australia. I'm sure they're already over $100 right now, right? So if people still buy games in Australia and they cost over $100, they're still going to buy them here, or in the States or Canada.
We're only thinking about this from like a Western first world country POV.
Consequences for some of these studios, and the gap between successes is going to become an ocean many studios cannot cross. I do not understand why the conversation isn't focused around how much money these companies are spending on games. Companies that cannot properly budget their own projects, set realistic sales projections, or even target an audience's needs properly. Ubisoft spends hundreds of millions of dollars on a busted-ass pirate ship simulator. EA invested hundreds of millions into an educational HR video disguised as Dragon Age.
Educational. That's about right.
Piece of
shit. And we have so many more studios that are torching millions of dollars on bloated games filled with busy work and realistic eyelashes. What are we doing here?
Exactly. Nobody gives a fuck. Original remaster. Like, I'm sorry, but like...
The original looks better. What?
Nobody asked. And also, let's say some people asked. Who asked for more? Which group of people had more askers? This or Bloodborne?
This industry is in a state of entropy where they just keep pressing forward, they keep spending more money, they're adding nothing to the core experience, and the customer is the one that is expected to keep up with their spending. They want to blame the failures of the industry.
Luckily, there's a Chinese knockoff version of that game coming out that looks like it's going to be way better. They stole everything from Elden Ring, so I'm going to assume it's going to be pretty fun.
I don't really see the appeal of like the hunting weird mechanical creatures with a bow and arrow. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me a good bow and arrow game, but I don't get the appeal of that aesthetic.
Yeah, you can even build mechs and shit like that in the game. It's gonna be awesome. Total fucking knockoff.
Not making enough money, only to distract from
This is
the
gonna be
fact
another
that
case of the
Firewall are
Chinese
losing their
knockoff being
jobs.
better than the
Studios are
Western
closing and
version.
Sales are dwindling.
I can't wait to
I
play
actually
it.
read through Matthew Ball's 223-page presentation, and he
200?
unwittingly proved it himself. In 2020, IDC, Google, ARC, and SMP all made projections on what they thought the industry would look like with its growth in the coming years. They viewed the pandemic boom as an accelerant, not an anomaly. Yes, these idiots thought that COVID was the future. ARC Investments forecast
Yeah, it's gonna keep growing forever, right? This massive
industry would-
spike in player count because of COVID is just gonna keep going. Yeah, good job, geniuses.
grow by 50% in 4 years, from $200 billion to $300 billion, meaning that investors blindly trusting speculators
Jesus, man, I feel bad for those investors. They really got hoodwinked.
ran to invest in
Jesus.
these companies and publishers, and in turn, those companies, flush with cash, invested heavily into their new future.
Yeah, I
only
bet
for
they
them to be
did.
met with the crushing reality that none of those predictions would come true outside of Ampere. So if you're going to use them for investment, they're actually probably the better bet. They don't want game prices to increase for inflation. They want game prices to increase to make up for their colossal financial hole that they've dug themselves into.
Yeah.
The pandemic led to a wave of overly optimistic projections. Popular forecasters and analysts predicted that gaming would experience perpetual growth, an assumption that was rooted in a brief surge during lockdowns. These predictions were reckless, overlooking the fundamental truth. Once the pandemic subsided, people had to return to the working world. Inflation
Well,
would
and
then
it's
hit.
also that like during the pandemic, that's whenever you had like all that DEI shit and all these other jobs that got
It was happening
added
before
into
the pandemic. I'm sure there was an increase of it during it, but it was happening well before that.
workforce that actually didn't contribute to the end product. So whenever you bring in 20 people onto the payroll, you really bring in about 25 people onto the payroll, because you need
'Cause
to have
5 of them
somebody
are
manage
useless.
those
Yeah.
people. You need to have somebody account for those people, literally with the money, and then you have to have somebody that deals with the people that deal with them. And so like there's like a pyramid that happens with every type of addition into a company. And so these things don't exist in a vacuum. So you add in this like massive amount of people and you're going to be in a bad spot.
Hard. I think a lot of people forget just how much of an impact stimulus checks had in the U.S. You had people that were low
The
income and
stimmy
middle
checks,
class.
that's true. Yeah, that is a massive thing that nobody really talks about. Is how much money flowed into these into video games and stuff. When people thought that giving the stimulus checks, they're going to spend it on food. Meanwhile, they're spending it on video games and weed. 100%.
Earners that were making more money through unemployment than they ever did while
And then
they
also
were
a bunch of it
employed.
went into crypto. I guarantee you, people dump their stimmy checks into crypto.
This ended up leading to a lot of unrealistic and excessive spending, especially given how much time they had on their hands. How the hell could you believe that the sales and engagement gaming saw in 2020 and 2021 would stay the same? Then I found out
This
just
also happened with streamers and content creators too.
how delusional
The
they
same
are.
thing.
When I came across the slide that was talking about the shortfall of spending and how players were spending less money and how there
Yeah.
were less hours that were spent in games and how that led to an unprecedented number of commercial disappointments and flops. Forspoken, Skull and Bones, Concord, Halo Infinite, Redfall, Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar. These games didn't
What piles of crap. Those are literally the biggest piles of crap that came out recently. Oh my god. All piles of crap, DEI garbage too. Every single one of them.
fail because of some esoteric lack in spending. It's because these games sucked. Now, after I saw this, it got me thinking.
Well, you got this one. People thought suck dick.
I've
This one-
never even heard of X Defiant. Have any of these games been good? Go Gotham Knights. That sounds terrible. Multiversus. Never heard of that. Skull and Bones. Absolute flop. Crucible. Never heard of it. Tales from the Borderlands. Borderlands was a good game. I have no idea about that. Gundam Evolution. Didn't hear anything about that. Outlaws. Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush looked like it could be sort of fun, but then that was kind of garbage. Suicide Squad, garbage. Callisto Protocol, never heard of it. Apex Legends Mobile, terrible. Halo, and this is all garbage. Literally every single one of these games on here is pretty much a pile of shit. That's crazy. That's crazy.
one sucked dick. This one sucked so much dick they're having to shut it down. I don't even know what this is. So this is like, you know what I said about building 100 bridges and sucking one dick? well, these people, they sucked, let's see, I don't know, what's this, 15 plus 9.
How is it possible
24
that all
dicks.
these games are pure garbage? That's wild.
Yeah, what happens when you don't build any bridges and you just suck 24 dicks? Not so good, huh?
It's because these games sucked. Now, after I saw this, it got me thinking. I'll admit that I was taken aback when I saw just how much...
As a matter of fact, yes.
The industry had receded after 2020. I had expected a decline, sure, but not to that extent. It took me a while to process it, so I started comparing some of the numbers with some of the other charts in the presentation, and then I stumbled upon something eye-opening. For a while now, I've had this ongoing theory in my mind that the so-called silent majority, those unengaged, uneducated masses that the industry often points to, doesn't...
Like, we're gonna get a bunch of these, like, stupid fucking, like, Walmart Americans to pay all their money for this game. Like, I'm sorry, but unless you're making a basketball or a soccer or football game, that's not gonna happen. Maybe a gun game, but that's it.
Actually exist.
They do love their like Maddens and NHLs and stuff. They buy those like every single year. I could never get into the sports games after like I played on the Sega. I played like 95 NHL 95, and then after that, I could not care less about sports games. They're like the same thing every time. I mean, you can see the same thing about COD. I was a big fan of COD.
I've always believed that the controversies and the complaints that we see from gamers are more than just the noise of a toxic vocal minority. They have a real, tangible effect on how players spend their money and engage with games. And as much as these developers...
Well, here's how you know that's true. If they didn't have an effect, you wouldn't have companies paying streamers to create the effect.
And journalists would try to dismiss it. I think our collective opinions hold more weight than they give us credit for. The slide in the presentation that caught my eye was the one that showed that while U.S. GDP and world GDP were on the rise, indicating that global overall spending was up, player spending dropped 13% from 2021 to 2024. That's a pretty significant dip. And it made me think, what other industry exploded alongside gaming during this period? Social media.
Streaming, yeah.
And guess what? Social media didn't take the same dive that gaming did. So think about it. Players who would have normally not been involved in gaming communities suddenly found themselves more connected than ever. The silent majority...
So my understanding is it did a little bit. Stats overview. So if you look at like 2021 and like you look at the average is like 3.1 million, and then you look at this to 2.4. So a 3.1 to 2.4 drop, that's about 33% drop, you know, just like average, about like 1/3. I actually think it's pretty similar to streaming. That's COVID. Well, that's my point, right? Is that what he's saying is that extrapolating COVID data to be an indefinite trend is retarded.
Yeah, I don't know how like big investors or anybody got hoodwinked by that. Like that one, that's absolutely ridiculous. If you're a big investor and you got tricked into thinking that kind of growth is going to be sustainable, you're retarded.
Yeah, well, a 20%. Let's say it's a 20% drop. Okay, so I might have done the math wrong. My point is that that's about the same, actually. Didn't you mean YouTube and Instagram? I don't have access to that data as easily as I have access to Twitch. You could be right with Instagram or another platform. All I can look at is Twitch as like one point on a graph.
Those once quiet and unaware of the broader gaming world became a part of it during COVID. They began engaging with games on a deeper level, and their awareness grew. They didn't buy into what was just being fed to them. They started thinking critically and evaluated their purchases, participating in some of these online communities and sharing their thoughts on other platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Twitch.
There's also a metagame. Oh, wow. Good chart. There's also a metagame of this, too. There's a psychological metagame that's going on, which is that in times of recession, and in times of problems, people actually spend more money on entertainment to distract themselves.
That makes sense.
This is
I believe
phenomenon. So, like, not only is it stupid in one way, it's observably stupid based off of psychology that's been tested.
I think that Twitch is a really good example of this because while their viewership has
give them bread and circuses, right?
They still retained a lot of the audience that they captured during COVID, and they haven't fallen back to their pre-2020 numbers. That shows a community that stuck around, that was once passive consumers, is now much more active and informed.
I think that's what's happened with all of these. They have grown, but they haven't continued to grow. And the problem is that prospective investment is banking on continuous returns and continuous growth, which is what's concerning them. It's not that they haven't retained some of the growth, it's that they haven't continued the growth. And that's what's hurting the value of these companies. It's because it's all about basically hoping that you can take your $20 and turn it into $30.
Of customers who have returned
because
to the
you pretty much have to, because everyone is forced into putting their money in the stock market because of inflation. You have to put it somewhere where it's going to grow, or otherwise you're losing money. This is just another toxic effect of the government being able to print money, is that everyone's money is essentially funneled into the stock market where it normally probably wouldn't be going because of inflation.
It's about whether
have
the graph
less money
is
to
going
spend
up
due
or
to
down.
inflation, who likely picked up on a couple of YouTube channels or Twitch streamers that are talking about different issues that are going on in the industry,
What an idiot.
and they're still
I shouldn't have
watching. They're
peeked.
still engaging with that content. This isn't just a trend. It's a fundamental change in how we as consumers, as customers, as players engage with this industry. We're not just the ones buying games anymore. We are shaping the conversations around them. We are shaping what their sales look like at the end of the day. And I think the developers
hate that. They hate the fact that gamers actually have a voice in terms of what they buy and what they want in game.
Well, the bad developers do. The good developers don't, obviously, right? Because the good developers, players speak about the positives of their game, right? So if you're a good dev, this is good for you. If you're a shit dev, then yeah, you're mad.
And I think that developers resent that a lot, because that's why they turn off comments and disable replies and block people, and they try to shut people down that say the wrong things.
journalists are starting to realize this, even if they're reluctant to admit it. The players really are the ones with all the power.
Yeah,
when you look at the growth of social media and you see how many people are connected to it, it's at a point where it's oversaturation. We're still seeing the same levels of engagement during the lockdown days. That they're still the same. A lot of the channels probably have seen even more growth since then. I would guarantee if I went out and I started polling some of the people that blew up or got big or anything like that during COVID, they probably still retained a lot of their audience, except for some of those Minecraft.
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitch totally fell the fuck off. I'm going to be honest. Like, all of those people that were like the Among Us streamers, literally basically every single one of them is totally irrelevant and nobody cares about them anymore.
Was there specific Among Us streamers? I thought most streamers who did that were just like streamers from other games that came over to Among Us. Was there specific Among Us streamers? I don't remember that.
And there's like maybe 2 exceptions, and that's the same with Minecrafters. Total fucking, like, people just, you know, they went from middle school to high school, and I guess these people got lost in translation.
Guys, but that's
I'm not giving any names.
To themselves for the
No
most
names.
part. But I think what the industry doesn't realize, or maybe they just don't want to realize it, that's probably really what it is that players are still engaged.
Don't put XQC on this. That's my boy. XQC took a golden parachute worth $100 million, sailed off into the sunset.
100 million?
20, 30,000 viewers every day.
Holy shit, XQC.
Don't talk shit about my boy. Absolutely not. I'm thinking about the people that are trying to, you know, hustling around that 2,000 range.
Engaged in all these discussions, all the views.
2,000, dude. 2,000 viewers is a shit ton of viewers. Like that, you can make a living off 2,000 viewers. That's crazy.
In on videos, all the tweets and all the Reddit stuff is still getting updates and all that good stuff. People are talking about the industry, but they're not buying the games and they're not playing the games. So what does that mean? That means that they're out there involved in these communities and they're avoiding games. You cannot tell me that all the controversy that was surrounding Dragon Age: The Veilguard didn't affect its sales. People waited for
100%
it
it
felt
did. Of course
the
it
general
did.
vibe of the game, and they avoided the game. And as such, the game failed. In most cases, a game with that name, a game that has that much cultural weight, Dragon Age, should have sold regardless. It still should have did really well, but it didn't.
Was Dragon Age that big of a game before? I know it underperformed compared to its previous, but I don't think Dragon Age was ever that big of a game. Didn't they start off as like a telltale type of game where it's like a little story thing you just follow? It's not even a game.
And why is
Inquisition
it?
sold
Because
20
people
million
are
copies.
paying attention to videos or watching videos or keeping up on previews and stuff like that. They're going off of the vibe before they actually go to buy. And as such, they're avoiding stuff that they don't think is worth their money. You know, one thing that the analysts and the journalists aren't talking about is why GTA could sell for $100.
Because
the
it's
reason
good.
why is it's because it's a cultural phenomenon.
it's
it
a
has
good
been
game.
a cultural
Yeah.
phenomenon. It's a
Wow.
massive game. And
What a surprise.
The thing is that there's a lot of
Yeah, it's a massive game, but we're just banking on the fact that it's going to be good. We don't have no idea whether it's going to be good or not yet. It could be filled with total slop as well. Like, it's not likely, but it's definitely possible.
players that are out there that have overhyped the game in a lot of cases, but it's one of the most anticipated releases in forever, it feels like. And some people are confident the game is going to deliver, but I think a lot of people are going to buy it even if it doesn't because they're just going to do it. Simple as that. And there's a level of confidence there, consumer confidence, that I don't think exists anywhere else in the industry right now. Maybe there's a couple of studios that are out there.
What was the last game Rockstar released? Was it Red Dead Redemption? Must be, right? And that was good. So, I mean, they have a pretty good track record.
Software, Larian, Capcom, in my opinion, fucking, and like I'm gonna turn it like Warhorse now with Kingdom Come, Saber Interactive. They made Space Marine 2. Grinding Gear Games, Creative Business Unit 3, fucking CD Projekt Red. I'm gonna be honest, they're still on my good list. Like any of these people, Atlas. Yep.
Dude, I have Cyberpunk, and I bought it when it was on sale for like $40, and I barely played it. I just can't get into like the single player story type of narrative games. Just an MMO Andy, I guess.
Example. If these people make a game, I am proactively in, and they have to work to get me out.
Other people are like, for sure, I'll buy one of their games. FromSoft is like that for a lot of people. Larian's now become one of those studios as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that people will probably pick up on Game Science or Saber or whatever it might be. But outside of that, the vast majority of games, most people are relatively leery about. I mean, there's not a lot of studios. Anytime any game comes out, I'm pretty nervous because I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work day one. I don't know if it's going to be worth my money. I don't know if they're going to deliver on all the promises, even with the gameplay trailers and stuff like that. Because we've had games in the past that have showed us gameplay trailers and the game didn't play anything like it.
Yeah.
Sure, you're going to have some people that are out there that are going to be habit buyers.
Those are my favorite videos.
They will just go and pick up Grand Theft Auto. And I'm sure probably the same thing will happen for like sports games and stuff like that too. But I'm just
dude, they can release a new one every year and people will buy it. They do. And there's like no difference between the last one. It could just be a patch for the previous game. That's crazy that people just continue to buy that crap.
Dude, there's just a lot of people that are out there that can't afford $100 video games. And this isn't a shot at people being like, oh, look at this broke boy or anything like that. Dude, I get it. Even like
there are a lot of people who can afford things, but they just simply like there are people that make $100,000 a year, but they have a wife that's maybe a stay-at-home mom, and they have 2 or 3 kids, and they have to budget their money. That's just the way it is. And also, just because people are like, I have friends of mine, a lot of my friends are like this. They make a lot of money, but they're still prudent with their money.
Yeah, I mean, just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean that you're gonna feel good when you buy a piece of crap game that essentially under-delivered, promised too much, and you feel like you wasted your money. Nobody likes feeling like they wasted their money, whether you're rich or not. It still doesn't matter.
I have some of my friends that these are not even streamer friends. They do not have streamer money. They go out every weekend, spend $1,000, and they're not making that. I don't know where they get the fucking money.
They go into debt, dude. Just like virtually everyone in today's society. Everyone's thousands of dollars of credit card debt. It's crazy. I don't know. I have no idea how people can live like that. I have to pay mine on every month, or I would go insane, knowing that I'm paying just insane interest on random crap that you most likely don't even need. Just putting everything on credit card. The way how people live like that is beyond me, dude. It's one thing if you have to do it because like I don't know, you lost your job and you need to pay a few bills, so you throw them on the credit card until you can get your finances in order. But there's people who just max that thing out month after month. They just put the minimum payment on there. And dude, it's, once again, people not understanding interest or compound interest and how that works. It's crazy, dude.
But I mean, for a lot of people that have a lot of money, many of them have a lot of money because they're prudent with their money.
I don't like spending that kind of money on something. I could write it off on my taxes and I'll still feel dirty doing it. And to be honest with you, with the rise in popularity for PC gaming, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a return to pirating. Just like in the early 2000s with CDs. They were overpriced.
100%. People would. If games, the price to get out of control, people will start pirating things. Just thankfully right now, Steam is so convenient, and I think the pricing is fair, especially for older games. Not for new games. It's the prices are still kind of outrageous, but for older stuff, Steam sales go on, so people just spend money on stuff like that. But yeah, like for new games, I can see people pirating some, especially single player stuff. Like, who cares?
Hard to store.
$19
They were easily
CDs.
damaged. 20, $30 for a CD.
It's ridiculous.
Bro, it was too much money. Everybody flooded to LimeWire and Napster.
And we
and
would
stuff.
buy like a few of them, right? Like you'd buy like the new fucking Coheed and Cambria or a new fucking back then like AFI.
Dude, I think I bought like one CD in my life. I think it was like a Sum 41 or Blink 182 CD. And then like, yeah, like paying for music is absurd to me. I pirated the crap out of music. LimeWire, Kazaa. I think there was like a Russian one called Emule that my cousin used. Yeah, dude. And then I somehow never got too many viruses from that.
My Chemical Romance, a Tool, right? Like,
Yeah, I never
Dragon
paid for
Force.
music.
But
I
there
think
were
I
just,
bought
like,
one or
so
two
many other
CDs in my entire
albums
life.
that were just not worth $20. Linkin Park, yeah, exactly. You buy Meteora for sure.
Dude, there is this website before Spotify came out. It was like late, or I guess early 2000s. It was after MySpace. It was around when Facebook first came out. It was a website. It was a German website called Groove Shark, and you could stream music for free on there. It's basically Spotify, but for free. And then I think they got sued and they got shut down. And then after that, Spotify came out. Insane website. Anyone could just upload it and you could just stream any kind of music for free. It was amazing. Great. I don't know if too many people even knew about it. A Groove
Stuff
Shark.
like that.
System
I
of a
guarantee you'll
Down.
probably see the
Yeah.
same thing here because a lot of it is based off of convenience. While general customers, I don't really think
bought
are
this
really
one.
interested in pirating games, just general consumers,
this one,
they
2005.
will be if the industry prices them out of it
At a
because they
Walmart.
were at one point in time with music. Back in the day, nobody had any problem downloading movies, TV shows, and music, and still in a lot of cases people do. The only reason why they do it today is because it's convenient and relatively cheap in their eyes because they're spending it on subscription programs or whatever it is.
Bro. I mean, I don't pay for Spotify because if you have an Android, you could just download a cracked version of Spotify Premium or whatever. Like if you know what you're doing, you can get even that stuff for free now. Probably doesn't work for
This is gonna be
iPhones. I don't.
devastating.
Does anyone still like jailbreak their iPhone? I don't think that's really a thing anymore. I think you might as well just get an Android if you're going to go down that route. That's why I like Android over Apple is you can do stuff like that. Like on my phone, on my Android phone, I have like the cracked version of YouTube that has like no ads. It's amazing.
To the industry if they make this choice because like I said before, listing off some of the games, think about the games that they would actually sell for $100. The vast majority of games that release in a year aren't worth that kind of
No,
money.
they're not.
And you know for a fact, anytime there's some type of just generic,
They're not worth that entry fee. And that's another really big component is that for some people that get into a video game, they will pay $100 in a video game through microtransactions and other types of fees. But it's like a cover charge, right? Like there would be a lot of bars that like, I remember this is like going back 10 years and actually, oh my God, more than 10 years now. That I would go downtown and I would go to bars and clubs with friends of mine, right? I know you might not be able to believe this, but this was in another 3,000 years ago, right?
Asmon
And so
going to
on
the
6th
bar with
Street,
friends.
downtown Austin.
I don't know if
We
I
would
ever
just
believe
never
this.
go in places that had a cover charge. We just never would.
Yeah, it was always a factor. Whenever you go to the bar, yeah, you would, and sometimes you would just go to the place with the cheaper cover charge. One place is $20, the other place is 10. You're just gonna pick the $10 place because, like, dude, that's an extra drink that you can have.
And so, like, if you have a high enough cover charge, there are going to be some people that are just not going to go in. And the higher the cover charge,
Which
the
by
higher the
design, I
probability
think you want that for certain places. If you're gonna keep out in certain crowd of people, you're gonna have a higher cover charge.
is that you have people that just don't even go in. Yeah, Cody knows. Yeah, exactly. He's in chat. Yeah, facts. Exactly. No, for sure, right? And you know, some of those fucking places, it's not worth spending $15 to spend
not.
$20 on a shot. You might as well just go somewhere else.
I mean, it's not worth it any of them, to be honest. If I'm being honest, going to the bar is a colossal waste of money. Me and my buddies would always get drunk before going to the bar. We get absolutely hammered before we get there.
Don't spend $20 on a shot anyway.
I mean, maybe we'd buy like one round.
blanket price increase.
What's the cover charge to get inside the?
They're all going to go for
establishment.
it, and they're all going to fail.
What's a
Outside of a
cover
handful.
charge? What is this? Asmon have
Maybe
kids
one,
in
two,
his
3
chat.
games a year, maybe. And the funny thing is that even those games are going to suffer because most people aren't going to be able to justify $300 on 3 games.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. You out of your mind?
Yeah, true.
That's half a console. What are you thinking?
Well, it is now with the Concord tax.
Even a price increase up to $80, I think is
the next consoles, the next gen consoles, they're going to be $1,000. You pretty much guarantee it. The PS 6 and the Xbox, what do they call it? Xbox 2. Last one was Xbox One, right? It has to be Xbox 2. They're going to be like, they have to be 1,000. There's no way they're coming up for under $1,000. I mean, at that point, you might as well just get a PC.
Too much. It's just, I don't care what people say about, how realistically money feels today because of inflation or anything like that. $80 to $100 is a lot of money. And for most people, they're just going to pass on it. There's other games that are out there that are far cheaper, that are much more worth their money, and they're going to support them instead. Yeah. So if these AAA companies want to go ahead and do it, these big, the biggest publishers and studios that we have that are out there, go for it. I love to make videos about it.
Yeah,
exactly. I want to make for BioWare. Man, that's going to be.
Dude, when a game comes up for 100, Asmon 100% going to farm it. I mean, I'm sure guys like this are going to farm it too, and then Asmon will farm them, farming it.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you
and
guys
then I'll farm Asmon farming them.
Channel, share it to your friends, share it on social media and things like that. Boost my engagement. Make me famous.
I'll link you guys the video.
See you guys later.
This is a great
video.
Stay
cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
I love this video. Great, amazing fucking video. Fucking incredible. Absolute cinema. There it is. Give them a like. Give it a sub. We've watched a lot of Legendary Drops videos over the years, and I think they've all been great. And so this guy's always relevant. Yes, absolutely. And so I see this, and I think that a lot of these people, like, it's true that inflation has gone up. It is. It's true. But it doesn't matter. Like, you're thinking about the economics of it. You're not thinking about the psychology. Business.
I'll disagree here. I think it does matter. I think consumers can understand, especially currently with inflation being such a hot topic politically. If you are going to increase the price of games, now is the time to do it.
This, in my opinion, is more about psychology than economics. Economics follows the psychology. The psychology does not follow the economics. That's the difference. People don't understand that. It's consumer behavior. Exactly. It's consumer fucking behavior. We pay $100 for games. I would in some cases. Nobody asked them to hire Hollywood actors. We just want fun games. I think that when
game companies do end up spending a lot on bullshit like that, like, no, does that like convince anyone to buy a game if you have Matt Damon like in your game? If you do like the facial tracking and everything on Matt, is that really going to sell you more game copies? I mean, I guess if you're trying to get like someone who's not a gamer into gaming, seeing like a famous actor might get them to be a bit more curious about video games. I can see that angle on it, but it's not going to convince any gamers to play your game by having like actors in it.
If Kojima makes Death Stranding 2 with a bunch of Hollywood actors and it's really good, I'll fucking buy it. I don't care. But here's the problem. Most of these other people, you're not Kojima. You're not even close. Get them out. Just add in your generic, hot anime girl.
He says he'll play Kojima games, but I don't think he played Death Stranding, did he? Like, Death Stranding, it's a good game. I played it. It's a good game for a bit, but eventually it gets a little old, just being like an Uber simulator. I need to watch like a story breakdown of that game, because I was super into the story of it, but like the gameplay just got a little bit repetitive for me. But I need to watch like a breakdown of what happened in that game, because I'm curious.
Put it in there, you're gonna be better off. That's the way I see it. People love them. Yeah, people, and also like those actors are really like, same as with Norman Reedus, right? Everybody loves him. So like if you bring in an actor, like Jim Carrey is another one. Like you hear Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey are gonna be in the Sonic movie. I'm sorry, but like every 35-year-old dad is like bat chesting. Oh, I'm gonna take my kid to see this. It's gonna be so good. Yeah, exactly. And the kid's excited too. Like, that's how to fucking print money. And so there you go.
All right. Well, in my opinion, if Grand Theft Auto comes out and it's $100, people will pay for it. And if they want to raise the price, now's the time to do it, because inflation's on everyone's mind. So like if you're not one of these like massive AAA studios, you're not getting away with $100. That's the way it is. Let's see his comments. So Asmon, thanks for unpausing. He got him. He got his ass. Steam store specials price letter to $10. That's why I shop for games nowadays. I didn't know you could do that. That's cool. No AAA titles worth $100 nowadays. Probably not. People will still pay it for Grand Theft Auto though. And then also like payment plans, 100%, just like promote that as an option. That'll make people buy the games. Nobody asked for Hollywood actors. True. $100 price tag, buggy launches, in-game DEI, indoctrination, death of AAA video games. True. I agree with this. This is 100% true. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't buy too many games. Like the one I'm looking forward to is gonna be Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm definitely gonna be buying that one. The last game I bought was freaking Cyberpunk, and I barely played it. I just play free to play games or just MMOs. I'm just MMO Andy. I love multiplayer games, single player games. I know they're great, right? But I just can't put the time in, man. I just if I don't feel like I'm competing against someone in an online game, I just can't get into it, dude. I don't know what's wrong with me. All right, anyways, that was cool. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, subscribe, and bye bye for now.